G'day and welcome to another episode of SuperCoach Paige. We've got a very special edition for you this week, and I'm joined again by Matt and Damon, and you'll see to the left of me is Josh Rickards. How are you, Josh?
I'm good, thanks. How you going?
I'm pretty good. Now, the Bombers had a pretty good win on the weekend, and we said last week that we'd have you on if the Bombers could finally break the hoodoo, and they have.
Yeah, it was good to be on the winning side of one of them, so you feel sorry for the Demon supporters, not so much the club, but that's the way it goes.
Well, they've had us throughout the 50s and 60s, so as far as I'm concerned, I've got no mercy for them. But
no mercy.
I tell you what, your Tigers, Joyce.
They're doing pretty well. 2-0.
Off.
The lid's not off yet.
It so is.
If we beat the Bulldogs, it'll be sort of getting pried off, but it'll explode off if we somehow beat. If we beat Collingwood, then the lid is off. Ooh. But I highly doubt that's going to happen.
And I tell you what, speaking of the lid is off. Now we had a bet last week. Didn't we, Damon?
No.
We did.
Maybe.
You poor Carlton sod, and after your cheer squad had the nerve to say, welcome Mick Moldhouse from club number 1 to club number scum, as far as I'm concerned...
I didn't write that, but if I was going to,
I think, now, your great mate Eddie here, now if we get a close-up of that producer, we're just going to zoom right in here. Look at this. Look at Eddie's beautiful head. Collingwood membership right here.
It's hard not to laugh at it, I must
Now,
admit.
you're going to wear this for the entire night. And you can prop this up.
Prop it
Just
up on
prop
the table.
that
There
so we
you go.
can. And you're also going to enjoy a bit of Collingwood Premiership action here from 20. Oh, look, Damon.
It really suits you, Damon.
Yeah,
Do not utter those
you look
words.
fantastic. Now,
It's not a laughing matter.
Let's just make sure there's
That's
enough
joking me.
Collingwood on you here, and so our viewers can get a good idea that you did lose to me, which is fantastic.
It's really hot already.
Good.
It's burning through my skin.
Yeah. The Blues aren't doing all that well this year. That kind of segues into our first segment. What are we going to be talking about first?
Well, look, we're at segment 1, which is the best and worst of round 2. So round 2's come and gone, and we've had a couple of interesting things bob up. Namely, for me this week was having the guts to take in Matthew LEUENBERGER despite not being named in the first round, and he came good this week with a nice score over 100. But the downside for me would probably have to be Dane Zorko, who I'm just about getting a little bit frustrated with. I've lost the faith with him almost. I'm giving him one more week to prove.
You going to press the T on him?
Oh, I'm very tempted because I think Maloney might be taking some points of him, but we're going to leave that for later.
We're going to talk about it a bit later.
Now, how about you guys? What's your best and worst from the weekend? We'll start with you, Josh.
My best was Heppel and Goddard. My two Bomber boys, I got them in the back line. Both scored well over 100 and really contributed to my side.
Against Melbourne.
Against Melbourne, but you still got to perform, and they did, so they were good.
They did.
That's exactly right. And yourself, Damon?
Well, I was a bit sneaky. During the rolling lockout, I actually traded out Carnesis to Monfries.
Very good.
Nice.
Yeah, so I made the full use of that. And
one.
Carnesis, of course, went on to score 8, and Monfries, I think, was like 102 or something.
Good
like that.
score.
Yeah,
regardless.
yeah.
And Maddie, give us what's your best and worst this week?
Sammy Mitchell, best captain last week, rewarded me with a nice 134, which is quite good. JARRYN GEARY, I really liked his first round score, 144, but this week he only got a 48 with the Jake King tag, so you couldn't really back him in much when he gets attention like that, but you can't tell what an opposition coach is going to do, so you've got to take the good with the bad.
And I mean, we had Gary Ablett off the back of 178 in round 1, and everybody who jumped in and moved heaven and hell to get Gary Ablett, and he only delivered 99 points. Now, I got sucked in personally.
Serves
did anyone
them
else
right.
move
Serves them right. I'm
It
gonna
does.
say.
But did anybody put the big C on him this week and feel the wrath that I did?
I did, but the same account though, Swan only got 103, so
did,
it wasn't
yep.
as bad. If you got like a massive score, I would have been kicking myself, I think.
Now, I mean, those lucky people out there that had Joe Watson this week would have been, especially as captain, would have been absolutely licking their lips. And our overall winner this week had him as captain, so that just goes to show.
What did you score this week, by the way?
Look, my score this week, marginally up from last week. Still not where I want to be. 200, that's pretty bad. 2,215. That was last week. 2,215 this week for me. Yourself?
Not too bad, actually. 23.89, so quite good this
Not
weekend.
too bad. But you're leading you're the clubhouse leader at the moment.
I am the clubhouse leader.
You are?
Listen to me.
What's your ranking at the moment, Joyce?
Sorry?
Your ranking. How are you going?
I think it's like top 300 or something like that.
Very nice.
Very good.
Tracking well.
And,
myself, I only got 2203, so I dropped off from last week. ended up getting 2300, and yeah, slipped back a bit, unfortunately.
Joshy, how we go?
Paige, you got me by 2 points. 2-2-1-3.
That's all right. I always enjoy a good win, as you would know.
Yeah, I'm just going to ignore you now. Just going to go like this the entire time.
So with the rookies this year, what do you think we're going to be doing with those? It's the price changes for round 3, so you really need to make sure you've got the good ones in your team.
And we're on the bubble this week, so especially when we're looking at now. I mean, for me, now we've had a look at Sam Dwyer, 110 points on the weekend, stayed away from the sub-vest. I said earlier on, and being a Collingwood supporter, I said, well, Sam Dwyer, I don't think he's going to be in the team for such a prolonged period of time, namely because guys like Beams, Dale Thomas for solo, Cracker, Ball, Clinton Young as well. So there's 6 players already that still got to come back into the side. But I mean, if you gathered from his game on the weekend, if the only way anybody's going to move him out of the team is if they run and carry as hard as him and play with as much hunger. I mean, he was fantastic, and I think he's quickly become a favourite of Nathan Buckley's. And I'm actually thinking now that he'll probably maintain his spot on the side and probably do a Jared Blair of 2010 and hold his position in the team.
Yeah.
So, and if you've got him 96,000, I mean, jump on him. I know there's a bit of you know, it could be the is it Raman? No, it wasn't Ramanaskus. Peveril, there we go. Essendon. That's why we got him here. Now, it could be a Peveril situation where, I mean, Peveril in the early 2000s was dominating for Essendon, but was forced back on the rookie list because of that long-term injury problem.
Joe Mussidi came back.
Exactly. Now, when Tim Broomhead comes back off the the long-term injury list, it means that Dwyer's going to be forced back down. But that shouldn't worry people too much, because given how he scored, I think he's going to earn enough money to at least be a small cash cow to get you an upgrade by around week 6 or 7.
So he's one of the best forward rookies by far.
And he's got that mid-forward ability with him as well, so really good if you use him in connection with Jake Need as well.
Yeah. And my best rookie so far has been Jasper Pittard. Not a rookie exactly, but certainly bargain price. He's playing the Daniel Pearce role at Port Adelaide right now, and he's certainly racking up big scores from it. He had 91 points on the weekend, so you can't really go past him or Stevenson or Heath. So if you have none of them in your team, you're doing something wrong.
Exactly right.
Get him in.
For myself, I've got Brett Goods. He's averaging 105.5 at the moment. 98 points the weekend versus Freo. Break even of negative 136. So if you haven't got him, which I'm sure everyone does, get on him.
Most selected player, I think, of this year.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
So definitely get on him. He's a mature age player as well, so he's going to keep his place in the side. And we'll play the full season, you'd think.
How about you, Josh?
I've got Jago O'Meara. He's took some time to get going in his first game, but he really shined against Sydney.
Didn't he? He really came from his
You can see he's got that build already of an AFL footballer.
0% body fat.
Yeah, absolutely. And in the wet conditions, he just shined. He shined
he was
all day
great
long.
and for those that did watch it, he was, when the ball hit the deck, he was probably the best player to pick the ball up from ground level. He was sensational.
Yeah.
And there's no wonder he's drawn already comparisons with a Chris Judd, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very good. And that brings us to talking point of the week, which is breakout contenders as well as fantasy flops. So my flop so far is the man that Damon traded out, Patrick Karnisis.
Yeah, very lucky.
Average of 34 so far with an 8 last week, which is abysmal.
And named the sub too, but good for those people who had Dwyer on the bench and subbed him on.
Absolutely.
That ended up being a gift in disguise.
Yeah, and you need to get rid of him. Like, you can't keep a mid-price player for that long if they're not going to make you at least a little bit of money.
Yeah.
And my breakout contender, even though he's not his actual breakout, is Josh Kennedy from the Eagles. Only priced at $299,000. He's played Hawthorn and Fremantle so far for an average of 106, which is very respectable. And you just need to look at the 7 players that they've got coming up, the Eagles. They've got Melbourne, Carlton, Port, Bulldogs, Brisbane, North and GWS, which is not strong backlines, so you'd have to, back him
based on that, we spoke about that earlier. Based on that is the reason this week I've gone Karnisis straight to Kennedy, and I think now that Kennedy is going to shoot up in price, and like you said, with those games coming up, there's some good cash to be made and some even better points. So that is a great thing. But for me, Andrew Gaff's been a bit of a flop. Now I had a bit of a tinkle with him during the we had unlimited trade. I don't know where that came from. Now, Gaff, there's something about a West Coast midfield without Daniel Kerr that I do not like. And for me, that is almost a very good reason why Gaff has probably struggled. Now, we've seen him, you know, he's averaging in the 80s last year, and he's averaging into the 90s, early 90s. A lot of talk probably surrounded that he might be able to push that barrier to 100 and be a consistent high scorer. But he only had 47 points against Hawthorn on the weekend, and that brings an average up for him for 56 points, which isn't really great. I mean, considering he's around that 480k mark. So he's been a bit of a flop, and I think it's time to shelve him. And given his break even of 169, you're only going to lose money. So if you've got him, and someone for me that I think could really be a straight swap,
superstar player,
is Tom Liberatore. And I mean, there's nothing to be taken off the Dog. The Dogs had a great win in the first round, probably crushed back to earth in the second round, but Tom Liberatore, when you take into consideration that in round 1 he had 130 points, he backed it up this week with another 133. That brings his average now to 131 and a break even of -4. So if you're someone who's really looking to bring in another premium into their side, this is probably the best and most easiest way.
Or even trading out an underperforming one, like I'm considering going from Dangerfield to Liberatore this week. I know it's very bad to do side trades, but
jeez.
Hey, I'm leading on this table. I will do what I want.
The Messiah.
Yes, God.
So yeah, it's
Speaking
definitely.
Of Messiahs, Malthouse? No, sorry, we'll keep going.
No, it's definitely Liberatore and Kennedy are definite ins for me this week, with Carneses and Dangerfield being casualties.
Well, he does have a high break-even Dangerfield, but as you said, I mean, Tom Liberatore and who else? Was it Pierce Hanley, another one who had a massive score of 160. So I mean, there are a couple of people that you can possibly look to downgrade if you're getting frustrated with some others that aren't really performing to what their form would suggest.
Yeah. And another player is Daniel Rich. He's been pretty disappointing considering he was pretty much a trailblazer in the pre-season. He's only averaging 69 at the moment. He scored 77 on the weekend, so a little bit of an improvement upon his game in the first week. His break-even's 146, so he's going to drop in price heaps. And he's priced similarly to Gaff, who you just spoke of. He's 485, so Liber is one to look at. He'd be one I'd definitely look at. And another one is Luke Parker. He's been performing pretty well. Got 133 on the weekend against Gold Coast. So
how does Sydney keep doing that?
Developing the young players.
They're just picking them out left, right, and centre. I mean, we saw Dan Hanbury last year.
Ridiculous.
And Parker, he's come from the clouds almost. I mean, he was obviously heavily sub-affected last year. And as you see, if you can stay away from the sub-vest.
It's the direct opposite of what's happening at Melbourne. I mean, you've got
Sorry,
people like
fans.
you've got people like Ryan O'Keefe who you couldn't see the red or the white on his jumper with all the mud that was caked onto it at the end of the game. And I'm sure if Melbourne were playing that game, they would be crisp and white and
bruise-free footballers. One Carlton player would put it.
Yeah, and it's really night and day the difference between the two. So if you've got players who have such as Ryan O'Keefe and Jude Bolton to look up to, then you're obviously going to get young players coming in like Parker and Hanbury.
Parker's the perfect player to take over Jude Bolton, probably at the end of this year, I'd say. Bolton's coming to the end of his career. Parker's moulded into the perfect player to replace him.
I think you're spot on, and especially with obviously Bolton having those issues with his ACL and PCL, they could basically go at any point. And he'd be one that's going to step straight into that role, and he's very much a contested player, isn't he?
Yeah.
And who are your flops and snaps for the...
I've got the lucky one of Jack Watts this week.
Our boy Jack Watts.
Our boy Jack Watts. I don't like to be too harsh on some players, but I was there on Saturday night. He's just lost all confidence.
He has, hasn't
he? I think a lot of people got sucked in by his average in the pre-season. He had one really big game.
Sure.
His average shot up, people saw it, jumped on him straight away. So I think people got a little bit sucked in there.
Do you think as well it's a bit of, and we discussed last week as well, that he's playing very much, he's gone very deep.
Instead of being a loose running player, he's more a lockdown defender.
For sure, and now he's moved into a position where he's going to be accountable. And I mean, we don't want to get on and really start bashing Melbourne or Melbourne players, but when Jack Watts is forced to be accountable, that's where the problem is.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like him more on a wing, to be honest, and I think if he played a high half forward, with the ability to roll through the wings. I think that's when he becomes elusive, and that's when we saw his scores shot up in the pre-season.
He's got terrific aerobic fitness. He can run all day, and he's not slow, he's not overly quick, but he can run all day. So I think he's one on there, Paige.
And how about a breakout contender?
I'm going the Essendon flavour again. Ben Howlett. I've since day one, I can tell you honestly, since his debut, I've called that this guy would be a very, very good midfielder. He puts his head over the ball, goes at it 110%, and he's had a cracking first 2 games.
Yeah, so hasn't he? That game against Adelaide, we might have thought, oh geez, that's a bit, you know, we thought, oh, is that going to really reflect the next week? And it has. I mean, despite it being Melbourne, but back to the point before, it was Adelaide that he scored that well against, and we know how good Adelaide's midfield is.
And I mean, you look at Essendon's midfield now. They're really starting to develop a really good midfield. You got Watson, Goddard, Heppel, Zaharakis. All of a sudden, you got Howlett coming in, a 5th best midfielder. You got him as your 5th best midfielder. You're doing all right.
Yeah, quite good.
Well, there's nothing to suggest that, you know, Essendon aren't going to be a very good team this year, because they will be. They've got great depth. They've got they've got a clear injury list.
Touch wood.
And
Without the peptides.
Yeah, well.
Oh, come on. Come on.
Alleged peptide.
Are we?
Oh, God. We're going to move into our next segment, being the snap.
Favourite segment of the week.
It is now every week.
What do you call it? The snap?
The snap.
Where is it? Where's your prop?
Good prop, fantastic. Now each week we've seen players bob up on the radar, very much a knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah.
And who is our candidate this week?
Mine is a positive one. So it's one that scored very well, but you shouldn't jump on him. Justin Westhoff. He's played Melbourne and GWS, and he is averaging 131. But you've just got to look at the opposition that Port have come up against. I mean, he runs all day. He's worked very hard. You know, it might be possible that the coaches moved him up onto the wing and, you know, got a lot more of that cheap ball. But you really can't trust someone like Justin Westhoff, who, when the contested ball happens and he faces it against Sydney, for example, or Collingwood, or someone that's really hard and physical, his scores are definitely going to suffer.
Yeah, he might get found out, but I like that he can play both ends of the ground. And
he's definitely got the talent. It's, as you said, just a consistency issue with Westhoff. He's perfect height, can run all day. Yeah, I think you're spot on.
I'm not getting sucked in though.
No. I'll tell you, but for me, I mean that's on a positive note. I mean, how good he's doing, and that really reflects Port Adelaide and how good they're doing. They're flying at the moment. But
very good.
Another issue now, we've seen all over our social networks, so Twitter and Facebook, people getting frustrated with Taylor Walker. Now, we've got to remember that Adelaide played in the pouring rain up in Brisbane. It was humid and it was wet, and it was not the ideal situation for key forwards. Now, look, he did track at 41% efficiency. He did kick a wicked goal on his play. That was sensational. But I mean, with that aside, you've got to remember that when we invest into key forwards, especially Taylor Walker, is that there are going to be times where you're going to have to take the good with the bad. I think that's standard.
The only exception to the rule would probably be Buddy Franklin. He's the only player I think who, as a key position forward, you know, can score on a consistent basis, you know, high scores. But yeah, you're right. I mean, you can't really trust him every week to put.
Well, that's it, and I feel as well. And look, I'll be honest, I've invested in him. I've taken the punt because I still believe he's a star in his own right, and he's shown that he can win his own ball. And even in the first game, he didn't really need Tippett to be there, so to speak. And, I mean, that reflected in his SuperCoach score, which was 96. So when you take that into consideration, that round one he had 96, and this week he had a third of that. You've got to remember that what he's capable of, and who have Adelaide got this week?
Port Adelaide.
Port Adelaide. So
the showdown.
The showdown.
Very good.
And
from memory, I think he kicked 7 last showdown, didn't he?
Yeah,
against Troy Chaplin.
That's
Troy
right,
Chaplin.
Oh, Richmond.
Who is it at Richmond?
Yeah, he's a good
Is
player.
Right?
Good player.
Nice guy, Chas.
He's good now.
It's good now that he's a Richmond jumper.
Yeah.
But look, do you guys, what do you think? Keep him or trade him at the moment?
Never had him. Scrap him. Done
him.
I'd say keep him. He's one of those players who can really break a game open and get you big scores.
Spot on. I think so too.
I honestly don't have him, but if he's in your side, I'd keep him.
Look, I'll be honest, I'm keeping the faith with him, and I will continue to do so until he really shows me any consistent signs of being poor and Tippett, or the loss of Tippett affecting him. But who have you got, Damon?
Hamish Hartlett. I think there's a lot of people that get scared off by break-evens. leading into the weeks where, you know, price changes come in, he's got to break even 124. But if you're investing in a premium like HARTLETT, you know, he's a great young player. He's been savaged by injuries over the years. He's averaging 80.5, so he's still, you know, scoring decently. So I'd definitely say keep him.
Yeah.
Don't jump off him. He's a decent player.
Yeah.
I like it. And then Josh, who have you got for us?
I've got probably HAYDEN CROZIER. He's a good mate of mine. I speak to him occasionally. So
G'day, Hayden. How you doing?
Hayden, how you doing? Good debut. Not a debut. First goal in AFL footy. Well done, mate. Really good. He scored 85 on the weekend for his first game of the season. He's had a brilliant start in the Waffle. He kicked 6 goals in 2 games. He scored 85 on the weekend, which was, I thought, pretty good.
It's a very good score considering.
But yeah, being a young player, I'm not sure whether he's going to keep that consistency up.
He's definitely put on a lot of weight because he was an absolute stick.
He was, yeah. He was a skinny boy when he rocked up to Fremantle. But I mean, do you think that we've seen Ross the Boss has got this annoying and almost uncanny ability to ruin any Supercoach relevant player?
I think so. Yeah.
I think that he might be the unlucky cut from a Ross Lyons side. Considering he likes to move those rookies in and out.
Especially with Hayden Ballantyne coming back in either this week or next, depends how he pulls up. Unfortunately, I think Hayden might be the one that falls. And
even Michael Walters as well. He's someone who's shot up into sort of Supercoach calculations, and he's averaging 100, I think, at the moment. Yeah. So that might be something that might come into effect as well with Crozier coming into the side, and obviously you've still got Ballantyne to come in, and how good Walters is playing. Is there room for 3 smalls in that forward line?
Yeah.
Now we were talking about Zorko earlier, but I got a tweet from Craig of Manning.
The tweet of the week.
The tweet of the week from me. The tweets of the week. My tweet of the week was about Zorko. What do we do with Zorko? Now, in my opinion, Brett Maloney has completely stifled Zorko's scoring at the club. He's playing the same role that Zorko was playing last year, but the issue with Brisbane are they've played 2 reasonably difficult sides first up. And
we'd have the Bulldogs as difficult.
Well, the way they're playing this year, I would say they were quite difficult.
Oh, okay, yeah, right.
Lots of contested ball, and that was always a plus for them. It was really just the execution on the outside, and they've certainly got better with that.
Yep.
But with Brisbane, they've got a lot of easier games coming up. This week they are playing the Gold Coast, so you really need to see how they're going to perform against
the Q Clash, is what they call
it. Q Clash.
So see how Zorko performs. Don't trade him out yet. You probably have a lot bigger problems with your side than Dane Zorko.
And that's one thing you've got to think about as well, is that when you're trading, this is a total side point, but when you're trading, you've got to ask yourself 2 things. One, the player that I'm trading, is trading that player really going to benefit my side in point where it's going to really jump up my scores? And secondly, if it is, then great. If it's not, have a look at what other parts of your side need work first. I mean, it's always easy to get sucked into which premiums are performing and which ones aren't, and let's switch and change them around. But overall, this is a marathon, not a sprint.
You've got to think long term. There's a lot of people that just think on a week-to-week basis.
Very much so.
Like, I'd love to get Watson into my team, but I can't. I can't
right
now.
It's a very much a waiting game.
Yeah.
So that's what we've got to take into consideration. We've started with the players we have because we've put faith into them.
Yep.
We've got to stick with them. And I mean, that's just what we're going to do.
Yeah. How about your tweet?
My tweet of the week comes from Carto7. G'day. I'm worried that Patrick Ryder is being overtaken by Tom Bellchambers and won't score highly enough. Should I keep him or trade him? Now, Josh, you and I had a conversation about this earlier, that how well Bellchambers has developed. I mean, he's leaning down, but he looks a lot more muscular. Tripping over my words tonight.
Collins a Potter.
Just remember how many games Carlton have won, Carl? None. Yay! Now, I really believe that Bellchambers that has really taken over that #1 rock role at Essendon, and we saw how fluently he was scoring on the weekend. And how many? What did he end up with?
144.
Well, that just goes to show. I mean, considering that I think now that Ryder's been restricted to the forward line, and when you take into consideration that you've got Hurley that's going to roll through there, you've got Cramery who does a great job. There is a very potent forward line at Melbourne. They played Melbourne, at Essendon, and they showed against Melbourne that they were going to score highly, but Ryder really crumbled, I thought. He didn't have the impact in the game that I sort of suspected.
I still think Ryder's ruck work is still very, very good. I still think his number one position is in the ruck.
Yep.
But Bellchambers, if you watch Saturday night's game, which many people switched off after about half time, I think Bellchambers' ruck work was sublime.
Yep.
He set up Watson and Howlett and Stanton numerous occasions, throwing Heppel there as well.
Yep.
Set them up numerous occasions with sled into goals inside the forward 50. So
I think that's one thing we're going to, especially with those who have Patrick Ryder, I know there is a lot of frustration with him. We saw from Ryder last year that when he was rucking well and he was in that ruck position, that's where his points were derived from. Hit outs to advantage, he was tackling, and because he is so athletic and really gifted in that sense, that he actually is a very good scorer when he plays that role. But when he's resided to the forward line, cut him. If you've got him, I would definitely consider trading to somebody else, and that's someone for me would probably be LEUENBERGER if you missed the boat with him in round
Or
one.
Will Minson.
Or Will Minson, who...
Well.
And what's Minson's actually the highest scoring ruckman?
134, I believe.
Yeah, 134.5, yeah.
So, I mean, if you're looking for a bit of point of difference, I mean, not sure how that's going to pan out for the rest of the year, but, I mean, even if you're looking to save a bit of cash, considering how highly Ryder is priced, moving him down to, you know, a Matty LEUENBERGER who's at 300k would not be the worst thing you do for your side.
Yeah. How about you, Damon? What's your tweet for the week?
I've got here, trade Roughhead, Ryder or Carnesis is the question. Do I only trade Carnesis if he's sub? I got $250,000 in the bank with one trade to go. Thoughts wise, what should I do?
It's a shame you can't trade all of them.
Yes. The first two are premiums, of course, so you know you've chosen them for a reason, so stick with them. Carnesis, on the other hand, as I think one of you guys touched on, you know, he's a cash cow. You know, he's a mid-price player, so he's a bit of a gamble. So I reckon cut your losses with him. You've got. Was it 250,000 in the bank?
Yep.
So go for other players like Monfries, like I did. He's averaging 107 at the moment, so he's a decent get. Josh Kennedy, if you haven't got him, another one to go for.
He's a must this week, I think.
Yeah.
You'll watch, he'll probably be the most traded in player, I think.
He's not a vicary, that's for sure.
Otherwise, the other option is to bank the cash by downgrading him to someone like DWYER, who's got a break even of
Who's DWYER play for?
I don't know. I have no idea.
He played well on the weekend, didn't he?
Yeah, he did play pretty well.
Yeah, he played around. But he's got a negative, break even of negative 103, so he's going to shoot up in price. So.
Who were our options again?
So it was Monfries and Josh Kennedy and DWYER.
I like Kennedy.
I like Kennedy.
I'd go for Kennedy or Monfries. That's
I'll probably say Monfries.
Yep.
And how about your tweet of the week, Josh?
Mine was from Josh Rickards. He goes with Port Adelaide, the Bulldogs, Brisbane, GWS in the next couple of weeks for West Coast. Nat Nui uncertain. Is Sinclair a good bench option?
Callum Sinclair, that is.
Callum Sinclair, that is, yeah.
Good question.
He played his debut on the weekend against the Hawks, and I don't think it was too bad. He showed plenty of potential. He moved around the ground well and really assisted Dan Cox a lot.
I think he was a better option than Scott Lycett from
he was built up a lot.
He has, but like you said, Cal Sinclair, obviously he's been a player in the waffle.
He's a mature age recruit, wasn't he? Yeah.
Oh, sorry, he's from the VFL.
Yeah.
Thinking of somebody else. From the VFL, so he's got that mature age background and that senior football, especially playing against so many, hardened players.
Yeah. I personally would, get him in. And
try and get him in, but you don't need to this week because his price isn't going to go up, and you've got a lot more, bigger issues that you probably need to solve.
That's it.
But I mean, it's a good thing to bring up, and especially considering who West Coast are playing. As we said, we touched on that earlier with Kennedy and who we're coming up against, but. He'd be a pretty good cash cow just to begin with.
Maybe trading around 4.
But I mean, speaking on trades, now, how funny was this Saturday? Now, for those of you out there who are not yet up to speed on the rolling lockout, I must inform you that once the first game comes and goes and we are in rolling lockout...
We were actually there. We witnessed this moment.
You witnessed this moment and you witnessed me going...
fantastic moment.
Trades aren't reversible.
No, so once that first game starts and it's finished and you can still muck around and sub plays and trade in and out, they are not reversible. Okay, now I was mucking around and had Cox in my... It worked out for me, but I'm just saying I didn't want to burn the trade so
At least now you know.
I do.
Yeah.
So, professional. But I traded Cox to the rucks from the forward. And I put Roughhead back in the forward line after a really crapola performance against Geelong. And opted to muck around and see how that went. And I put in Tommy Rockcliffe for Ruffy, and
got about 60 extra points or something
I
like
did.
that.
Well, Ruffy had 100 and something odd, and Roughhead only ended up on 80 odd. So that's something to keep in mind, guys, if you haven't already caught on to that one. But just before we wrap things up, Josh, you well-known social media on Twitter and Facebook pages. We won't go into too much detail about that unfortunate set of circumstances.
Yep.
But I mean, tell the guys at home, we want to get all the fans back into the page and tell them where they can go.
The page is AFL season news and off-season information.
It's a mouthful.
Yeah, it is a mouthful.
An acronym.
Everything is on there. All the news, all the views, previews every week. Get there. We want to get all the fans back and just get talking again. Bit of banter goes on. But we'd really love to have you back. And
I mean, for those of you that at home, we do actually have Josh's Facebook page link up on the scpage.com.au website, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. And look, let's just move into...
really quickly go through junk time. So, games for this weekend. We'll also name a couple of our standout players who we think are going to really score well this weekend.
We'll fly through this.
Freo Essendon, I'm going with Fremantle, and Stanton and Barlow are my tips for good.
Yep, I'm on Fremantle too, and going for Pearce and Howlett to have a big game.
Yeah, I'm on Freo as well. Getting on Fife and Heppel to continue his good form.
unfortunately, I'm on Fremantle as well. I'm going with Hurley and Fife.
North Melbourne and Sydney, I'm going for Sydney and Swallow and Josh Kennedy.
Hard to go past Sydney. I'm going to lock in Lindsay Thomas, who's probably... according to our friend, Jordan Witt is the best small forward in the competition.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm going with Sydney, same as you, Joyce, Josh Kennedy and Swallow.
I'm actually going the Roos. They've been alright the last 2 weeks, and I'm going with Zeeble and Parker.
Melbourne West Coast, going with West Coast for Cox and Josh Kennedy, who I'm trading in.
Yep, West Coast quite comfortably, Selwood and Kennedy.
Yep, Eagles as well, going for Kennedy and Gaff.
Eagles as well, Maston and Beau Waters.
GWS St Kilda, gone for the Giants this week. Nick Riewoldt and Big Boy McAvoy are my two tips.
BT.
Wowee.
Look, I like the Saints this week, and Stephen and Sipos.
Yeah, I'm going with the Saints. Riewoldt and McAvoy, Big Boy again.
I'm going the Saints as well. Jeremy Cameron and Nick Del Santo.
Yeah, good. Very good.
Geelong Carlton, I'm going with the Cats, and Selwood and Gibbs are my two choices.
I'm on the Cats too, especially after last week. Bartel and Chappie for me.
Yes, unfortunately I'm going for Geelong. Getting on Selwood and Murph.
Geelong for me as well, Cade Simpson and James Kelly.
Gold Coast Brisbane are next. I'm going for the Suns, going for a young tips this week. Charlie Dixon and Matty Leuenberger are my two tips.
I'm all over the Lions this week, but I think Gary Ablett and Swallow will tear this game apart.
I'm on the Lions. Getting on Gazza to turn around his form, his captain form anyway, and Maloney as well.
Yeah, Brisbane for me as well, Harley Bennell and Brent Maloney.
Where's the faith in the young team? Richmond Bulldogs, I'm going for the Tigers, and Jack Riewoldt and Shane Edwards. He's had a fantastic record against the Dogs.
I'm liking the Tigers, and we're all over Reece Conker and
Future Hall of Famer.
Yeah. And Tommy Liberatore.
I'm getting on the Tigers as well, getting on Libber and Trent Cotchin.
Tigers comfortably for me, Brett Delidio and Shane Tuck.
Collingwood Hawthorn, going for the Pies with Pendles and Birchall.
I'm not going for the Pies. No, they're our bogey side, so Hawks for me, and I think Brad Hill and still side bottom.
I'm not going for the Pies. I'm going for the Hawks. Getting on Swan and Mitchell.
Hawks for me as well, Franklin and Jordan Lewis.
Port Adelaide, the showdown to round out the week. Justin Westhoff and Paddy Dangerfield for mine.
Yep. I'm going to go Port Adelaide in an upset.
I'm going for Port, by the way.
Did you say Port?
I don't know if I said it or not.
Okay, Port as well. Wingard and Danger.
I'm going for the Crows. I'm getting on Dangerfield and Scott Thompson.
Yeah, Crows for me as well. Port Adelaide captain Travis Boak and Tex will bounce back.
Well, just before we wrap things up, we're going to give one last shout out, and that is to my friend Matthew Cash, who is currently the overall leader in SuperCoach at the moment.
Very nice.
Well done, champ. Good on you. We hope that you keep that up.
And on a side note, David Hale, big man from the Hawks, he's ranked number 4 in SuperCoach, so he wouldn't have himself in his own team.
No.
But who says AFL players don't know anything about fantasy football?
Well, there you go. But before we let you guys go, make sure at the end of this round that you look out for the tweet of the week that we'll be tweeting out. That is the SCP show. Make sure you use that as the hashtag on Twitter, and we will read that out in Tweet of the Week segment next week.
Yeah, all good. Great round of games coming up. Go Tigers.
Go Pies.
Go Blues.
And on.